Welcome, everybody. It's 2 o'clock. We will start. We are just about quora. Thank you to our officers that have come today. Thank you, Vanessa, Andrew, for assisting us to carry on with the meeting. So that's appreciated. Thank you to the officers. Thank you to our support staff. And it's a small agenda. We will go through it as swiftly, although as efficiently as we can. Just one quick announcement. Councillor Garrett may have to leave the room for a few moments. If he does so, I've got a couple of things. Okay. Disregard that. Welcome, Matt. Welcome, Ryan. Yeah, happy New Year. You're all right. We'd only just started. I just thanked our officers for being here, our support staff. Yeah. So Andrew was going to step out. He needed to make a phone call, and we would have been in court. So we were just making arrangements for that. But you've squared that off. Let's move on. It is a small agenda. We'll try and be brief we can. Apologies. I know we've got some apologies, please.
Yeah, we've received apologies from Councillor Oliver. Councillor Churchman will be substituting, and
Councillor Medland sent his apologies. However, we haven't had official apologies from Councillor Bacon.
I'll give Councillor Bacon's apologies then. So I knew he wasn't coming. Okay, we've cleared that off. Minutes of the last meeting confirm as a true record. Our minutes, you have them. Any comments? Are we happy to approve them? They're approved. Declarations of interest. Have we got any declarations of interest? There are no declarations of interest. Public question time. We have no public in. Any written public questions? No written public questions.
no, none received.
Thank you. So item 5, our finance report for Newport Harbour. Is that you, Alex?
Yep, that is with the notes. It's a regular item on this agenda, similar to the previous meeting. It's quite an encouraging picture, I think, with regards to Newport Harbour. If you look at the net position at the bottom, the current forecast to the end of the year is that we'll be £27,000 in the good, which is particularly encouraging. Obviously, a lot of places are still trying to recover from COVID, as I mentioned last time, particularly in terms of income. Our income lines are all up and over budget, with some good performance around, as we've had before, leases and licenses, and some of our regular moorings, etc. Some of those costs are reflected in the slightly increased costs. The forecast is a slight forecasted overspend on expenditure of 3,700, largely down to supplies and services and contracted services, which you would expect anyway if you've got increases in income with things like utilities, etc. But we've got a reciprocal increase in income on the budget of 31,000 forecasted towards the end of the year. So I am relatively pleased with that, and I think that reflects to some extent on the performance of the team to achieving those kind of income figures in this particular climate. So happy to take any questions, but it is a similar picture to what we've had previously, and we'll continue to report this to you right up until the end of the year, but no real concerns at this stage.
Thank you, Alex. Any questions on that? Just use your mind.
Cool.
There is a minus.
I would expect that.
Yeah, thank you, Alex. And for Ventnor?
sorry, you won't see any changes on the income lines because obviously they're taking the income, but the figures that are there are largely reflective of the reduction in costs that we've had on the seaweed removal, really. So we're going to be showing similar figures, I think, on that right up until the end of the year. So it is a saving against the budget, if you like, because they're running it more efficiently in that regard. I'm not sure how we want to present that in the future. I guess we continue to present it like that, but we're not going to get into the same level of discussion about the detail because there is a contractor running that harbour for us. They do quarterly reports, which they circulate to us. My suggestion might be that in the future, we bring a version of those quarterly reports along to this meeting as an update so that you can get a feel for how the facility is performing, if you like.
You happy with that? Any questions for Vanessa?
Just obviously, we've got cliff falls all along that section. I presume Bonchurch is not affecting Ventnor as such, but have any cracks or any disturbances been noted along that particular stretch of Ventnor Bay where the town is and where we operate from? I mean, in fact,
Not, it would necessarily yeah, I don't think there's any indication it would impact on the harbour. We're doing work along the side of the harbour, but I'm not sure that'll actually impact on the performance of the harbour at this stage.
Sorry, where the car park is above Ventnor, I've just wondered whether any reports had been made or had come in.
I was there yesterday and the harbour itself looks fine. There's a lot more sediment in the waves, obviously, because so much of the cliff has gone down into it, so it's a bit muddier. But the harbour itself didn't have any evidence of any damage or worry. So it's just there's a bit more sediment in the waves at the moment because of all the cliff that's gone in, but it's not affecting it.
Just curious, in the changeover, have you had any feedback from the customers that are using Ventnor Harbour at all? Not that there is many, but has there been any communication from people using that, locals, since the new management's been put in place?
The existing council residents that we had on our pontoon, all of them are still there. They seem to be quite happy with the management company. All of them have kept their moorings, and the plus side with the management company is that they're inviting visitors again, which actually increases the use of the haven. So I think it's a good thing. But our existing customers from last year are all still there and happy. Pardon? Yeah.
Thank you. We're okay that Andrew's not here, but there we are. We're happy with that. You're happy with the suggestion? That Alex made. Okay, thank you for that, Alex. Yeah, Alex, please.
It just probably is worth noting the reason that this used to be a committee that was largely looking at Newport Harbour, as that was a statutory harbour and we had a duty to do that. We included Ventnor because Ventnor was also a statutory port, and we included that as part of the agenda of this meeting. We have, as I said, got a management contractor operating out of there. Committee members may well remember that we also said that we would explore the possibility of closing Ventnor as a statutory port so that we didn't have all these onerous obligations. We're currently looking at that with legal services. If we decide to go down that route, and I think it will be the subject of a report at this committee, future committee, if we decide to go down that route and we are successful, then we will not have to debate Ventnor Harbour statutorily at this board in the future. you may still be interested to have a on the agenda still, but it won't be an obligation to do that as part of this board.
There you have it, right? Yeah.
From the days on Cowes Harbour Commission, that's quite onerous, isn't it, to close that down? It's gonna take a while.
Yeah, it does make you wonder to some extent.
Yeah.
Why we went down that route in the first place, but I believe it was linked to the original grant
Right.
for Ventnor Harbour, but it is very onerous for such a small, it's not a port, is it really?
No.
But such a small operation. Yeah, you're right, Councillor Redbrook.
Remind me, Alex, what was it a decision of this committee to explore that idea? I
Yes.
seem to remember that.
Yeah.
It's a previous decision to explore the idea of closing. Okay. No further questions. We're happy with that financial report for both harbours. Thank you. And therefore, Senior Harbour Master report for Newport, page 13, 16 on our.
Right. So this is for September to November. Our numbers are decreasing on visitors, but this is as we would expect it to be because it's getting a bit cold and wet. We've continued having our designated persons teams meeting on a monthly basis, which is working very well. Instead of, it actually means we get to talk to each other instead of by emails. We've been inspected by the MCA for our port waste management plan, and we passed that. And we've also been inspected for Trinity House for our navigation aids, which we also passed. The harbour site has been used by other departments. So the Isle of Wight Council licensing team, with part of the DVSA, ran a taxi inspection scheme. So it's great that they're using the harbour site for other things other than boats. Excuse me. We've started doing the power washing, which is a lovely task, but the guys are getting on with it and doing really well. Sort of things that are happening to our customers due to the high volume of wet rain. We've had to pump out a lot of boats quite regularly, but we have been informing the customers that we've been doing it. But sadly, we have had 2 boats sink. One of them was on a swing mooring, and one of them was on the pontoon. We recovered the smaller of the boats with the owner, and the other one was arranged by the owner to get it removed by Cowes Harbour because of the size of it. There was a minor amount of pollution from where its bilge is washed out. So, but the Environment Agency was informed and they were happy. Visitors back in September, we had one that a fin keel that tied up on the quay wall, and you might have seen it leaning the wrong way. But the owners, we retied it, moved it round, and the owners were very happy, so much so that they stayed another 4 nights afterwards. You probably remember back in October, sadly, that there was a body recovered just off behind the hotel, which one of our harbour staff was sort of first on scene. We contacted the appropriate authorities and everything else, and it's been checked that the harbour staff is okay, and not a pleasant thing to find, but he was okay, and you know, we're double checking that he's still fine, which he is. With all the rain and the high tides, we've had to be a bit more aware of making sure the harbour drains are cleared and seeing what actually gets washed down the river. So yeah, at some points we did have a lot of firewood of the big tree stumps and stuff that we had to pull out the river to make sure they didn't go any further. Other than that, it's sort of, other than being cold, wet and windy, we've had sort of a non-eventful couple of months, which is great. Happy for any questions.
Thank you, Jonathan. Any questions?
Sorry, just something I meant to actually contact someone about. The rumour is that the classic car event is coming to Newport on the Saturday. Is that booked now? It's not. Okay. It's just we Newport and Casbrook Community Council. We only found about it second hand. We're obviously very pleased to see it come back to Newport. Sorry, Phil. See it come back to Newport, but obviously just wondered if there's any plans coming in place yet, or if they've actually booked anything. But it sounds like they haven't.
I've spoken to the organizer of it, and he's also the ones that do the carnival and a couple of other events. He's very keen on using the harbour. I don't believe he's booked it with amenity land hire yet, but he is very keen to use the harbour site. So we've got Riverfest, we've got the car show hopefully coming back. The carnival, it's used for a sort of dispersal site afterwards, but I'm not entirely sure what's actually been booked with amenity land hire.
Any other questions? If I might just add, I found that the way the report was written over 2 or 3 pages, very pleasing, easy to read, and giving us some information and allowing, if we need it, detailed questions. But I found myself reading it from start to finish, and I must say, sometimes when you get very large reports, they're daunting and off-putting. But the conciseness of this I found very readable. So I just thank you for that. And that's the feedback from the committee, is we prefer short, concise reports and a verbal update, and the ability, if we need to ask those questions, which is exactly what's provided. So thank you for that. Sorry to hear about the classic car show. Big mistake in my view, I'm afraid. The organizer doesn't realise the amount of support work that went in from Ryde Town Council that they won't be getting in Newport, and it's something he needs to be really aware of. But there we are. That's not for this committee. The problem is the arrangement was for 5 years, and of course, well, I did the arrangement with Vic, so I know it was for 5 years. But there we are. The new organizer doesn't believe that exists, but it does, because I've got it anyway.
It just concerns me if it comes. We're talking about the car thing. Where on earth are people going to park? I mean, one big advantage Ryde has is an enormous parking area.
Oh, we've got plenty in Newport.
Yeah.
Vanessa.
Have you? Yeah.
Do you know how much income Newport brings?
Yeah. But no, I mean, it is a thought, because people come by car, whether you know, for good or for bad, they do. And it is a question.
Yeah, just to put Vanessa at ease, it was in Newport on the Saturday prior to COVID. It only changed with the arrangement that Vic Gallucci came to with Ryde Town Council for it to be at Ryde 2 days. But it was always previously Saturday Newport, Sunday Ryde. That's what it's reverted back to for now.
Put your toilets out.
Just to add to that, the nice thing on a Saturday, we've got all of County Hall's car park, and plus there's a lot of car parking up at Sea Close at the other side. So there are 2 very large car parks next to the harbours, which makes it easy-ish.
Let's move on. Let's move on. We have the wellbeing report. Is that Jonathan?
Newport's Get Well plan has been decreasing gradually. We still have a couple of things to continue, especially things that have been highlighted in the audit that was carried out in September. But we're working through these. Some of them are sort of updating the Harbour's website, so then it's slightly separate from the council one, so it doesn't get lost into the council system. It's also sort of reviewing the navigational risk assessments. We got it done a couple of years ago, so we just need to review them. But a lot of it is just standard maintenance of our paperwork and systems, but going forward quite nicely. Ventnor itself, there are a couple of, you've been included in that as well. So the main ones for Ventnor is getting a navigational risk assessment, which we've booked Marico, which is the same company as David Foster, our designated person, works for. So they'll do a full navigational risk assessment as a basic starting point. Also included in that will be a full survey of Ventnor Harbour and its approaches, and that will also include all of the structures, so then we actually have something to start from, because in the past we've got the building diagrams and that's about it, so then we've got a bit more information, and then with those information and those reports we can finalize the management systems for the port, which will lay out the council's responsibility as the harbour authority, and also the responsibility and what we require from the management company. So it'll make it a lot easier, more black and white of whose is what, if that makes sense. Happy for any questions.
Thanks, Jonathan. Any questions?
Not a question. I know I've said it before, but I mean, if we look back to where this started, it's a phenomenal amount of progress to get to the point that there's virtually nothing other than routine stuff to do in Newport. And, you know, when we started, I can remember David coming here and telling us what had to be done, and it felt like it could never be done. And then, you know, only a handful of years later, it's all done. So hat off to the team and everyone that's worked on it.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
That's a very
Thank
good
you.
comment, and appreciated, I'm sure, by the team. But it is good. It's good. We're thinking there's very little to do, but that's a result of the work and effort that's gone in to bring it to this point. So
Yeah, and also, you know, we're not in a, you know, we're not in a position where we're losing lots and lots of money as a byproduct of that. It's quite it's a really good story, actually, isn't it? Yes, success.
loaded the money loser in ride. Don't worry, but that's another problem. Right, sorry, Andrew.
I'm really going to echo what Councillor Price has said. Being a returner to this committee, when I was reading through the agenda and got to the item on the Get Well plan, it did remind me that that was always a considerable document of some concern, and now I'm looking at something that is clearly so much smaller, and that's a great credit to everybody who's been involved in delivering on this. So I very much, as a returner, just want to say how obvious it is, the progress and the good progress that has been made. So well done.
Alex.
Thank you for those comments. They're quite well received, and probably one of the reasons as to why we've got such a short agenda today, because we have worked through those things, which is, you know, credit to the people involved that are sitting to my right. The only thing that we have done, which is an error on our part, which I wanted to address with you, is normally at this particular junction, and it was always picked up by Sean Newton, who's obviously now since left the authority, so we're one person down. So it's been a little overlooked, but David Foster would normally present the results of his audit to a committee. We should have really brought that today for you, which unfortunately we hadn't done. We have got a written copy of those audits. My suggestion to you, because I don't think that's another meeting until March, is it? My suggestion would be that we send out those that audit to you and allow you to come back to us with any questions or concerns that you might have on that, and we can then discuss those with David outside of this meeting, unless you'd like a special meeting to do that. I guess it probably does depend on what's in that audit. I don't think there's anything of any major concern, is there?
Sorry, the only thing I would mention is that David is quite keen to get it across, get his audits across to you guys, and he would have liked to have done it in person. So I suppose it's how it's all very well as sending it out. We just need a method of him probably going through it, whether we could do that on a Teams basis or something like that over the next sort of 6 weeks or so. And as Councillor Price would always know, David's it's an entertaining update from David. He always makes it very interesting. So it's something that's probably something we want to do.
Next meeting's 20. Well, how do you feel about it, members? How do you feel about this? Right. If we do that, are we talking about I'm calling it extraordinary because the next one is 22nd of March, 23rd. In between now and then.
Just to let you know that if you're doing it by Teams, it's not a committee meeting. It would need to be an informal meeting. But we're happy to,
Then does that satisfy what you're asking of us?
Yeah, I think so. I think myself and Alex and Jonathan are meeting with David tomorrow, so he can give us our rollicking for missing this meeting. But yeah, I think that would probably we can talk to him tomorrow, but I think he would probably be happy with that. I think he would like to present it. It's his duty to present it to us as well.
Yeah,
It does give us the opportunity to do that, as Marie's clarified, in an informal basis. If there anything that comes out of that informal meeting, we can then take it into the committee in March. So I think it is always interesting when David presents anything. If he had any major concerns, we'd be dealing with it already anyway, telling you today. But it is a process that we probably do need to go through and stick to. So apologies that we haven't brought it today. If we could deal with it in that way, from my point of view, that seems ideal. Possibly even better, actually.
So you're happy with that? If we fix up the teams to suit all the members, it will be informal and we will agendaize it for whatever it is noting in March or whatever decision you need from us. But he will present to us via Teams. You're happy with that? Okay, so we'll take that as an action. Thank you. Just leaves any questions? Right.
Not so much a question, but just wondering if Jonathan's aware that Island Harbour are closing down for 2 to 3 weeks, starting from next week, for repairs to the lock gates next week. Yeah. Okay. They will try to allow people in and out at the top of the tide, but they need to take the gates apart and redo them, put them back in. And the last time I've done that was quite a few years ago. It did escalate for quite a long time before they got back in again. So might be good for the council with visitors.
I shall mention it to Folly Ventures that they may need to be a bit. We may have some of the Island Harbour residents that may want to be on our pontoons for a bit. So I'll talk to them and then we'll see what we can come up with just in case. Thank you.
Is it worth a leaflet drop? Is that what you're saying, Ray, around the boat?
Island Harbour all know that we got notified a few days ago in advance of that. Yeah, but we always knew that that's an issue that's yeah, and it has broken down a few times in the last season. Even I got caught out once and had to sit outside for a couple of hours while they tried to watch it up, get me back in again.
Or float over the top.
Yeah.
You're right. Just one from me. We've put in a capital bid, haven't we, for an extra pontoon? I noticed in the capital bid section. I'm not aware that depending on the budget, of course, what happens in the budget process, I'm not aware that hasn't been accepted as part of the proposal. So that's for the extra pontoon. Just want to, I don't know if you all are aware of that.
It is an idea or proposal to join one of our existing permanent moorings, pontoons, which is on the east side, East A, and join it on to Green King's Walkershore pontoon. it's something that we obviously need agreement with Green King. And part of that will be how it's tendered, because we'll have to make sure it's done as the council's approved method. So it's getting Green King to agree with that. It's not decided. I've raised it with them as an idea. But their answer was, interesting, but we've got no money. So this is why I wanted to make sure that if we go forward with it, whether we have the money for the pontoon, and then it's an easier conversation saying, we can do it. What do you think? Instead of, we may be able to, we could be possibly. So this is why we've asked for the money in advance. The advantage we would get with that is that our visitors' pontoons would be walk ashore, because the numbers at the Folly have been falling off gradually over the last 3 or 4 years. There are numerous reasons for this. COVID was one of them. The pub's renovation was another. But it may help our numbers, and also if it's walk ashore, we can charge a little bit more as well, which helps.
Thanks, Jonathan. Okay, right.
If my memory serves me correctly, the pontoon that you're talking about is slightly skew from the pub's pontoon, isn't it? And we've got permanent mooring holders on that particular pontoon, which you're making as a visitor's pontoon. All of it, including the inside, because it will affect the inside, wouldn't it, of that?
The sort of proposed idea is that talking to Walk On, they can make us a custom pontoon with the correct angles. So it will look a little unique. And we would, if we had the visitors pontoon there, we don't need as much of our current visitors pontoon, so our permanents would be moved over. And then probably the inside, because it's quite shallow, we'd probably increase a tender berths, floating tender berths on the inside. So it should give us sort of, I think, sort of five to six visitors berths that can be rafted three deep, plus about 50 tender berths on the inside. The current permanents we have on that pontoon would fit on our current visitors pontoon. All yet to be agreed with Green King, and then from that we'd need to go through the tendering process, which means that the contract for the Folly would be redone. But at present, I believe we can extend the existing contract with them for a year, and then at that point it would need to be tendered anyway, so it's quite a good time to explore it.
Thank you. Any further questions? Well, thank you, colleagues. Thank you, our officer staff support. As always, we appreciate it, and our administrative backup and organising the meeting and taking a record of it. So thank you both for that. And we will set up a Teams meeting. That will be done to suit everyone, and we will meet again on the, whatever it is, 23rd of March, whenever it is. But yeah. 27th of March. And safe journey home, keep warm, all the rest of it. Yeah, I know. Thank you all. Meeting ended 2:34.